Mom announced, "You won't be attending university," and handed my dreams to my sister. But half a year later, they were pleading for my return. I dedicated my entire youth to this goal, my education fund, my aspiration. But when I finally received that acceptance letter, my mother said, "You won't be going." And then she gave my dreams to my sister. What did I do? I walked away. But 6 months later, they were begging me to come home. This is my journey of resilience. It wasn't a dramatic confrontation like you see in films when I discovered the truth. No, the fact that it was quiet, frigid, and almost businesslike made it more devastating. I remember the scent of Mom's herbal tea steeping on the counter as I stood in our kitchen, the air stifling from the spring humidity. I was clutching my acceptance letter from my dream university, grinning foolishly. This was the culmination of 4 years avoiding distractions, working evenings to save money, and pushing through academics. Dad barely glanced up from his newspaper. Mom didn't even rise from her chair. After sipping her tea, she simply stated, "About that. You won't be going." Before we continue with today's story, if you're enjoying what you've heard so far, please hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber helps me keep sharing these inspiring tales that touch your day. Thank you for your support. At first, I laughed. I thought it must be some kind of tasteless joke. There was a university fund. She and Dad had made the same promise at every birthday, honor roll ceremony, and uncomfortable family gathering since I was 11. Study hard, Ethan, and we'll make sure you get to university. I had studied hard. While others sought shortcuts, I walked the longer path. I told myself the reward would come if I persevered. So I declined parties and skipped road trips. And now I just received a shrug as I stared at them, my letter trembling slightly in my grasp. Mom said, "It's gone." We gave it to Olivia. Olivia, my younger sister. Olivia, who had never earned a passing grade without someone else's answers. Olivia, who had totaled 2 vehicles before turning 18. Olivia, who could sweet-talk anyone just long enough to escape genuine consequences. My mouth opened, but no words emerged. Rather than breaking the news gently, Dad folded his newspaper and leaned back in his chair as if finishing a routine task. "She deserves it more," he added. "She's got potential. She just needs a boost to get focused. You'll figure something out." After everything, I wish I could say I yelled, argued, and demanded to know how they could betray me like this, but I didn't. Standing there, I felt my spirit slowly crumble as I realized all those years of sacrifice had been meaningless and invisible to them. Without another word, I climbed the stairs to my room, each step heavier than the last. I found my old backpack, which I'd used for high school debate tournaments, and filled it with my battered laptop, a few changes of clothes, and the small amount of savings I'd accumulated from my part-time jobs. No one tried to stop me. Dad didn't look up. Mom remained seated. Olivia was probably out somewhere celebrating her windfall with my future. When I stepped out onto the porch, cicadas buzzing loudly in the muggy air, I realized I had no idea where I was going. But it didn't matter. I knew one thing for certain. I would never return. That first night, I slept in my car. There was no strategy. There was no plan, just a numb, autopilot version of me driving aimlessly until the fuel warning light on my old Corolla began to flash. When I pulled into a shopping center parking lot, reclined the seat, and stared at the fraying ceiling fabric, I felt smaller than ever. In the back of my mind, I kept thinking that maybe Mom would at least text, perhaps Dad would call. But my phone remained silent. No messages, no missed calls. The following days blurred into a marathon of job applications, canned soup, and sleeping with one eye open. I pawned my old guitar for gas money. I earned cash under the table sweeping dusty warehouses and helping moving companies, taking day labor wherever I could find it. Everywhere I went, people seemed to sense my desperation. Yet a tiny spark inside me refused to die out. I couldn't shake Dad's words that Olivia deserved it more, and instead of crushing me, they ignited something. A quiet determination, not the kind that makes you lash out, but the kind that drives you to build something with your own hands as proof of your existence. I spotted a flyer taped to a rundown coffee shop window. Space for rent, affordable, no references required. It was a shoebox tucked behind a fading strip mall, barely larger than a walk-in closet. But it had a ceiling, for walls, and an electrical outlet for charging my phone. When I mentioned I didn't have the first and last month's rent yet, the property manager, a no-nonsense woman named Rita, barely blinked. All she said was, "You work hard, you stay." So I worked hard. I took whatever jobs I could find during daylight hours and sketched ideas on scrap paper at night to create something no one could take from me. I had nothing left to lose, hands willing to work, and a mind that refused to quit. Despite my lack of formal education, I began selling refurbished furniture, which I cleaned, restored, and advertised online. People bought them, sometimes quickly, sometimes for more than I dared hope, but it wasn't glamorous. I still survived on instant noodles and dollar store peanut butter, but gradually, hope began to replace despair, and I kept it to myself. No calls home, no social media updates, no reaching out to anyone who might ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. I wanted to nurture this fragile beginning in private, preventing anyone from extinguishing it before it had a chance to grow. Olivia was making headlines a few states away, but not for positive reasons. It started as whispers, a message from a former classmate from my hometown. "Hey, your sister got into some trouble at university." A local news headline appeared on my cracked screen. "Freshman suspended after sorority vandalism incident." Heart racing, I clicked through, and there she was. Olivia, in a grainy photo, grinning stupidly in front of a trashed student lounge, spray paint can still dangling from her fingers. The girl who deserved it more. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply closed the article, turned off my phone, and went back to work, because I realized then that they had bet everything on the wrong child, and they were about to find out. Exactly 6 months after my departure, it happened. Initially, I didn't even notice. With headphones on and the scent of varnish thick in the air, I was sanding down a vintage dresser. As usual these days, my phone was buried in my bag, forgotten for hours at a time. When I finally retrieved it to check the time, I saw the missed calls. 1, 2, 8, 15. All from Mom, Dad, and even Olivia. The same people who had watched me walk away without a word. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Part of me wanted to throw the phone into a dumpster, block the numbers entirely, and pretend they didn't exist. But curiosity won out. I opened the most recent voicemail. Mom's voice, small and shaky. "Sweetie, we need to talk. Please. Things are bad. Just call us back, okay? We miss you. We miss you." The unfamiliar vocabulary made it sound like she was speaking a foreign language. I listened to the next message while lying on the concrete floor of my tiny shop, which I had built piece by piece with my own 2 hands. "Dad," gruff and awkward. "Listen, son. It's time we, put the past behind us. Your sister's had a rough patch. The family needs you. The family needs you." It was almost comical, if it weren't so pathetic. As I continued scrolling, I found Olivia, the most desperate of all. "Ethan, I messed up. Okay, I know you're angry, but can you just come home for a little while, please? Mom's freaking out. Dad's losing it. We need you, man." The girl who deserved it more, the pleading golden child. I didn't return the calls. I didn't send a text. Instead, I polished every piece of furniture I had prepared for the weekend market, humming along to the soothing music in my earbuds, staying up until midnight. No memory of home had ever felt as comforting as the steady rhythm of sandpaper against wood. The next morning, out of habit, I checked Twitter, and there it was. Olivia's face again, but this time without the smile, on the local news page for my hometown. Former student expelled after financial misconduct. Police investigating. The article confirmed what I instinctively knew. Olivia spiraled after her suspension. Bad decisions cascaded one after another. Fraudulent crowdfunding campaigns launched and publicized, student loans squandered on parties. She thought her friends would cover for her, but they reported her instead. The last illusions my parents clung to had vanished along with the Golden Girls' empire. They now needed a new savior, and somehow thought it could still be me. After everything, after taking my future and giving it to someone who set it ablaze. The irony was that I no longer felt angry at all, just free. They were trying to contact a person who no longer existed. The silent backup plan, the safety net, the reliable son. 6 months ago, that person disappeared after packing an old backpack, and he has never returned. I took my time responding. Actually, I didn't respond at all. Not at first. The calls continued in the days that followed. Mom changed tactics, sending lengthy texts filled with old photos from holiday mornings, birthday celebrations, and vacations where we all wore matching outfits. As if nostalgia alone could undo what they'd done. Dad was less subtle, leaving a string of angry voicemails. After everything we sacrificed for you, your sister's blood. How dare you ignore your own family? Olivia even tried guilt. Come on, Ethan. You can't just abandon us like this. You're better than that. Better than what? Better than a family who only remembered my name when they were in trouble? With each message, they threw a rope across the chasm they had created, hoping I would be desperate enough to grab hold. But I no longer felt desperate. I was doing well. My small furniture business wasn't so small anymore. I had repeat clients. A feature in the local paper had brought in additional orders each week. People genuinely appreciated me for what I created, not for what I could do for them. Just me, no safety net, no handouts, no university fund. The thought of returning to that place and sitting at the same worn kitchen table where Mom had previously assured me I wouldn't be going anywhere made my stomach turn. I wasn't angry. I wasn't resentful. I was done. One evening, I finally answered a call, but only to close the door, not to argue or explain. Mom's voice brimmed with hope. Ethan, oh, thank God. We've been so worried. We just want to talk, that's all. Maybe you can come by this weekend. I waited for her to finish. Then I spoke in a quiet, level voice. No. The line crackled into a sharp silence. Mom tried to recover. What? What do you mean, no? I'm not coming back. Not for a visit, not for a talk, not for anything. Honey, please. We're family. I smiled, but not kindly. No, you were family when it was convenient. Now you're just people I used to know. I didn't flinch when I heard her catch a sob. You made your choice when you gave my future away like it was loose change, I said. And now I'm making mine. I hung up before she could respond, before the tears and apologies and promises could start flowing. I stared at the screen for a moment, then turned the phone off. It felt lighter in my hand, like cutting the final thread of a life that had been trailing behind me like a torn kite. I stepped out onto the small porch of my rented shop-turned-home. The sun was setting, the sky streaked with crimson and gold. The quiet hum of traffic and the scent of freshly cut oak filled the warm air. The smell of freedom. I stood for a long while, taking it all in. The boy who had craved their approval for years wasn't me anymore. I wasn't their safety net from poor decisions. I was me, standing on solid ground that I had built for myself. I realized I no longer needed to run from the past. I had survived it. And as I turned to go back inside to the life I had created without them, I knew that the sweetest revenge of all was survival. Beautiful, quiet, steadfast survival. You expect it to feel like a battle when you walk away. You prepare for regret, guilt, and second thoughts to gnaw at you through the night. But none of that materialized. I only felt silence. The good kind, not the acrid, harsh kind. It's like standing in a meadow after a thunderstorm and breathing clean air for the first time. For so long, I believed that love meant shrinking yourself to give them more room. Giving until all that remains is the hope they'll notice. But real love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't hand your dreams to someone else and call it family. I didn't owe them an explanation. I didn't owe them another chance. I owed myself freedom. And that's exactly what I chose. Listen carefully. You aren't selfish for choosing yourself. If you're reading this and find yourself in my position, standing at that crossroads, debating whether to stay loyal to those who wouldn't blink if you vanished, you aren't cruel because you grew tired of proving you were worthy of love when you leave someone who only remembers your value in times of need. You aren't broken. You are enough, especially if they never said it. And sometimes letting go of someone who made you question whether you ever deserved it is the greatest act of self-love you can perform. I didn't seek updates, but even when you don't ask for them, life has a strange way of delivering them to you. A few months after that final contact, I learned from an old neighbor that things at home had quickly unraveled. Olivia's debts didn't magically disappear after she left school. Dad had drained the university fund for her, and it was long gone. And the humiliation? None of them had anticipated how enduring it would be. Dad had to sell his motorcycle. Mom took a second job at a department store on the edge of town. Olivia still believed the world owed her something, despite her repeated poor choices. They tried to maintain the facade, but you can only patch cracks for so long before the entire structure collapses. And me? I was too busy negotiating new contracts, sanding furniture, and growing my small enterprise into something substantial. Peace, no gloating, no revenge. The sweetest sound in the world. It's strange, the things you notice when you're free. Mornings feel different. Not heavy, not rushed, just peaceful. The kind of quiet that lets you hear your own thoughts again. I found a better rental. Small but clean, with a patch of garden in back where I could sit and watch the world go by. No one is shouting downstairs. No snide comments during meals. Just me, breathing without regret. The business grew faster than I'd anticipated. Mostly word of mouth. One customer told a friend, who told two more. Soon, I was making real money, not just scraping by. Enough to pay bills comfortably, nothing extravagant or headline-worthy. Enough to start saving. Enough to look forward to a future that finally felt like mine. I began attracting regular customers who came for the person behind the furniture as much as the furniture itself. One afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Chun, a couple, came to pick up a custom table. After shaking my hand and smiling, they said, "You should be proud. You're building something real that matters." And that struck me deeper than I expected. Because for the first time, someone saw me as someone who mattered because of what he had chosen to become, not as a last resort or contingency plan. No longer needing to prove anything. Not to strangers, not to my family, not even to myself. I was already enough. Everything they tried to hold over me, their love, their money, their approval, no longer owned me. Not even the university fund or the empty promises. It never did. They just made me believe it for a while. The funny thing is, freedom doesn't feel like fireworks. It doesn't come with a blockbuster movie scene where you shout into the heavens and throw your arms wide. It's gentler and quieter than that. But once it gets into your bones, you never let it go again. Freedom looks like a lazy Sunday morning. Sitting in a workshop that smells of sawdust and possibility. Drinking mediocre coffee from a chipped mug. It's realizing you don't have to answer the phone just because someone calls. It's walking into a store and buying a small item for yourself that you want rather than need, without second-guessing yourself or feeling guilty. It's laughing. Laughing without restraint. Without looking over your shoulder to see if someone is about to interrupt. I started making friends who knew nothing of my past. People who didn't wear outdated assumptions around their necks like chains. I had new dreams. Breathing in front of me in ways that felt solid and possible rather than the desperate way I used to. Clinging to someday like a lifeline. I dreamed of buying my own building, expanding the business, teaching other kids the ones everyone had given up on, how to believe in themselves and create something with their hands. I stopped waiting for an apology that would never come, and I didn't even realize it at the time. I no longer needed their presence. The truth is, those who loved you only when you were useful to them were never really your family in the first place. Family is more than blood. It's belonging. Family is the one that cheers for your dreams when no one else does, even if they're just standing quietly in your corner, holding space for your aspirations. I have no idea what Olivia is doing now. I don't know if Dad still sits in that old armchair, staring at the television, pretending he hasn't thrown away his true legacy. I don't know if Mom still looks at my empty chair on holidays, wondering when I'll return and act like nothing happened. Honestly, I don't care. I have my own table now, my own chair. And when I look around at my life, I don't see anything missing from the things I've built, friends, clients, the peaceful calm of knowing I made the right choice. I just see myself, finally completely free. If I've learned anything, it's that you don't have to stay in a place where you aren't valued. Love that should have been given freely doesn't have to be earned by bleeding yourself dry. Sometimes the bravest thing you will ever do is simply walking away and continuing to walk. I don't have the life I expected. I have something better, a life that's mine, a future they can never touch, something they will never understand. And that's enough.